Hello Linux fans, Rob here, and welcome to Linux Quest. Well, we've got a new release of Zorin OS, so let's hop over and take a look. Zorin OS 12.4. Now, Zorin has been around for a while, got a good following, and if you're someone coming from Windows, this might be appealing to you because that's kind of where the Zorin OS focus is. They've set up their desktop environment to mimic somewhat closely to the Windows feel, so that if you hop over, you're going to be somewhat comfortable with the way things are laid out. Now, Zorin offers a couple of different versions. They have the Ultimate Experience, and this is a paid-for version. So you've got 20 games included. They've added a couple of different themes and layouts in the Zorin Appearance portion, and we'll take a look at Zorin Appearance here in the core, which is what I have installed. Video wallpapers with the Zorin Background Plus, and you'll get a few other things there for €19, and US that equates to probably somewhere in around $22, $23. So not a bad deal if you're comparing it to Windows. However, this is Linux, so there is also a free version, or pay what you want version if you will, and that will be the Zorin OS 12.4 Core. Now, a lot of what you'll find up top here in Ultimate, you could install yourself. So, it's up to you here. If you want to support what the developers are doing and you're someone who just wants to install and get the complete package, then have at Ultimate by all means. Otherwise, you could come down here and you could choose €10, €25, put your own amount in there, or just simply click 0 and go ahead and download the core OS. And then you have Zorin OS Lite, very streamlined to run fast on old and low spec computers, and maybe I should have chosen that. There's also Zorin OS Education and Zorin OS Business. Alright, so I'm going to scroll back up here and we will take a look at what's new. Then we'll hop over. I've got this all installed and set up, so we'll hop over and check things out. So if we go over here to the Zorin blog, release notes here for 12.4. Let's go ahead and jump in for the full details. So it's going to bring up the latest kernel here. Well, not the latest, because we're at 4.18 now, but a newer kernel at 4.15. They've also updated Xserver graphics stack, and they have added compatibility for newer computers and hardware in this edition. New patches for system vulnerabilities are included. Also, with Zorin OS 12.4, you're going to have more updated packages. Now, Zorin is based off of Ubuntu, and I have to dig in deeper to see what version of Ubuntu. But anyway, 12.4 is going to be the final point release of Zorin OS 12, and then the next major version of Zorin will be based on, okay, here we go. This is giving us a little info. Will be based on Ubuntu 18.04.1 and will be released later this autumn. All right, so let's jump on over here. One of the things, again, that you're going to find immediately is the layout will be familiar to Windows, or especially, I think, Windows 10, Windows 7 users. You're going to have main categories here on the left, and this is a customized launcher, if you will, using the GNOME stack, or the GNOME shell, the GNOME shell. Get my words mixed up there. And for the most part, it's really easy to navigate. You've got software settings, activities overview here, so nicely laid out. And we'll go ahead and close this out, move back over, and then quick access to your various folders. So you could go right into Home, Documents, Download, so on and so forth. Now, I'm not crazy about scrolling a lot, and you have to kind of do that with this particular application launcher. However, I'll say the way things are categorized, the icons look professional. I mean, it works well. You could, just quickly search for something here. You'll notice also that Wine is set up and installed to make it easier to load some of your Windows games and Windows software. Play on Linux is also set up. So if you click on that, you'll see configure Wine, Play on Linux, Wine tricks, and things like that. So if you're someone who uses Wine, or you've thought about switching to Linux and you've got a few apps that you want to use on Wine, it's already set up for you and ready to go, which is a nice feature to have. Next up will be utilities. We'll go backwards here. You've got Archive Manager. I'll scroll through some of this. Image Viewer. Some of the basics. Screenshot Tool. Terminal, of course. And Quick Launch to help. And moving on up, System Tools. You could launch in to search for additional drivers. And on this particular system, which is primarily AMD based, there were no additional drivers, but this is also where you'll go. You'll see it launched right into Software and Updates. This is also where you'll go to choose different options for what software you could download if you have other repositories and things like that, or maybe you've got software on a CD. This is also an area where you could check for updates. I'll just will say that there was an update of about 218 megabytes after I got this set up and installed fresh. Additional drivers, so it'll automatically search for those drivers, and if there's anything available in as far as proprietary drivers, it'll give you an option to choose that. Alright, let's jump back over here to what's installed. Go back to System Tools. Here you have online accounts, so you could set up your Gmail and whatnot there. Software, we could launch right into the software library, software manager, if you will, and it'll be familiar to any of you who have run an Ubuntu-based distribution. Software updates, so you could launch right into that from here. Software and updates, kind of redundant. Startup applications, so we'll take a quick look at what's here. Caribou, indicator messages, live app, Snap user application auto start helper, so for snaps I take it, and SSH key agent. So not a lot running there, but you can control that there. You could add a few things or remove a few things if needed. Windows wireless drivers, that would be helpful. And then we have, well, let me back up, Startup Disk Creator. So if you're someone who distro hops a lot, you'll have that there ready for you to use. Let's jump over to Zorin Appearance. One of the things I will say is the install, for whatever reason, took forever on this system. I mean, forever, literally. But once installed, it ran a little better than the live, and it could be that the flash that I did or whatever, it could be the USB drive that I was using. Maybe it was just not the best flash, but the whole process was kind of grueling. Now, once installed, it's running okay. It's not running great, and we'll go over and take a look at the specs. Nothing to write home about. All right, back over here to theming. So that's one of the things that Zorin is kind of known for, and if you go with the Ultimate, you'll have more layouts and themes in place than you see here. So that's one of the additional features that you'll get. So first up, and again, this is something where you've got to kind of scroll, and I'm not a huge fan of this. I would much rather be able to maximize the window or stretch things out, but in this case, you don't have that capability here. So on desktop, you've got a couple of layouts. You could switch over to a more compact layout. So we'll click on that, and you'll just see things are a little slow as I make changes here. So now you see smaller icons, the panel down here at the bottom smaller, and that's all with one click. And if you're someone who is into the GNOME or GNOME look, you could switch over here and get a completely different look. And this is actually what you'll see as you're doing, or when you boot into the live version, and until you get things set up and installed, that's when you'll see this more Windows looking layout. You've got some other options here. You can toggle on or off icons on the desktop, choose which icons to show, and then you've got title bar button options here for left or right. We're going to go ahead and turn off animations and see if that'll pick things up just a little bit. Then if you go over to theme, this is an area again just with one click you can go in and choose a multitude of colors. So maybe you're not fond of blue, maybe you like green, maybe you're coming from Linux Mint and you like a dark theme with green. Well, there you have it with one click, and you'll notice all of the highlights and hues and things like that change. And that's one of the things you'll notice about Zorin, is that they take their theming very serious. And unless you get in and you mess around with things too much, you'll see it remaining pretty consistent throughout. So let's go over to fonts. You've got some options here, and Roboto is set up. That's actually pretty nice. And then under documents, we've got sans regular. And then if we go over to panel, you can choose the position of the panel. Now here you only have top or bottom, but if you're someone who likes things up top there, you want to just give it a different look, easy to do. You could turn auto hide on or off. Here we could customize the height, so now we're a little smaller here. We could bump things up. You could change the transparency as well, so we'll slide that up. Toggle the desktop button on or off, and then you've got some dash settings here, so we'll take a quick look at that. Alright, so let's keep moving in the software rundown here. Under sound and video, you've got Brasserio, Cheese, and for the purposes of this video, I installed Kdenlive and Simple Screen Recorder. You also have Pativi, Rhythmbox, and a video player set up. Alright, we'll move on through things here quickly. You've got calendar and contacts, and that's from the GNOME Stack side. Nice simple calendar. Just launch into that so you can get a look. I have not set up an online account through this. Back over to Office, you've got LibreOffice, which is not surprising if we go into Writer here. Alright, now this is a disappointment. You've got LibreOffice 5 as opposed to 6, and you would think with a fresh update like this that we would see a more recent version. But nevertheless, LibreOffice does the job. Under Internet, you're going to see Chromium web browser as default, Empathy, and then Geary will be what you'll use for handling your mail. Now, I haven't set up an account, but Geary's nice and clean interface. You can set up your Google account or your Gmail account easily through Geary. And here is a feature that is unique to Zorin. You don't find this in every distro, and that is going to be the Zorin web browser configurator or selector. Oh, there we go. I tell you, this system is not super snappy, so you'll see things kind of just slow in places. It's kind of odd, actually. So you'll see here you've got options to install other web browsers. This would be the default browser that you'll find most of the time in a GNOME-based or an Ubuntu/GNOME desktop, Midori, Firefox. So if you're not a Chromium fan, you could remove that and set up Firefox, all right here from the web browser manager. So that's a nice feature. And you know, it's getting harder and harder to find and point out unique features from distro to distro. Zorin kind of stands out on its own, again, because of the work they've done in the theming, and then some of the Zorin tools that are built in does help it to stand out. Graphics, you've got GIMP, LibreOffice Draw, and Simple Scan for scanning documents and such. And here we've got some games. You've got Solitaire, a version of Solitaire, Mahjong, Mines, Quadripassal, not familiar with that, and Sudoku. So with the Ultimate, you're going to get 20 games, and they're, I think, going to be probably higher quality games than what you're seeing here. All right, next up will be accessories, and you've got Activity Journal. It's actually, if you're someone into journaling, this is actually pretty nice, easy to use. Let's see here. Calculator, of course, clocks, maps, text editor, weather, and files. So we'll launch over into the file manager. So this is, you know, it's not a heavy full of software version like the Ultimate is, but I think it's a really nice mix and very balanced. All right, let's jump over and take a look at the file manager, otherwise known as files, and you'll see all the theming in place here. Blue lines, kind of double stacked blue here. That's one of the areas where it kind of gives you a polished feel. It feels like, hey, they've spent some time really working on keeping things, cohesive throughout. And let's jump on over to the software manager next. And if you've used an Ubuntu-based distro before, this will be familiar to you. And again, you see here, this is kind of just really slow loading for some reason. It's just not running well on this particular system. And I'll go over to About here in just a minute. And see, it's weird screen effects and things like that. It doesn't like this system. I'll put it that way. But you're going to find a great selection of software here. If you wanted to quickly see what all's installed, just go over to the installed section. So we'll scroll through this just to give you an idea. Then we go under System Apps. So I like the way that's separated out. And then here we have add-ons. So you've got the core runtime environment. Comic Books is an add-on. GStreamer Multimedia Codecs. That's something that I chose, and you can choose during setup if you want the codecs in place or not. And you could also check for updates here. So let's go over to settings, and this is where things, they show up and they're user friendly because you've got settings right here on your application launcher. So we'll go over to settings and we'll go down to details. So we have 12.4 64-bit, and this is not a powerhouse of a system, an E2 3800 AMD processor with a Radeon HD graphics video card. I've only got 4 gigs of RAM, but I do have a solid state drive here, so it just depends on the software itself, the operating itself. But for whatever reason, it's just not running well on this system. But just wanted to give you an idea of the hardware here in case you have something close. You could also check for updates right from here as well. Now, if you come on over here, you've got some options to add your favorites. So let me jump back. I should have mentioned that earlier. So if I wanted to add settings, you can right-click, and you'll see the pop-up window even has the blue theming in place. And you can just simply from there go to Add to Favorites. So we'll add there, and that'll pop right up. I must have double-clicked something or accidentally clicked something there. And now you could just launch right into settings from the panel here at the bottom. And if we come down here and right-click, you're not going to have any options for the panel on right-click here. There are other places within settings where you can go and change up some things within the panel. If we click the clock over here, you'll get a little pop-up of the calendar as well as notifications. You can see here where I installed Kdenlive. You've also got some world clock settings in place here as well. And then if you click here on this series of applets, you get a lot of different options. Audio options, your Wi-Fi, as well as user. And then you could go right into settings here, lock out the PC or shut things down, that kind of thing, reboot from there. They do a good job of keeping everything kind of clean here. Now there is a right-click option, so you could create a new folder or a document from here. Align the icons if we had them set up here. If you use multiple desktops, you could organize those by name. I can't talk today, folks. It's one of those days. Change the background or go right into terminal from here. So let's take a look at the wallpapers that are available. So here we have, and see, this is just strange how slow this is actually launching in. It really should be faster than this. I'm going to have to dig around and see what's up. But here we have a nice selection of wallpapers. Not surprised because of the attention that the Zorin developers pay to the looks department. So we'll go ahead and select that one, change that over, kind of cool. So, if you're currently using Zorin and maybe you're someone who doesn't distro hop a lot, I think this is going to be beneficial in that you'll get a more recent kernel. Some of the system packages and things like that have been updated. So if you're already a Zorin Linux user, probably worth the upgrade. I don't know if there's an upgrade path from within Zorin. that would be something you could find within the blog post and things like that. If you're new to Linux and maybe you're checking this out for the first time, especially if you're coming from Windows, this may be a good option for you just from the way things are laid out within the desktop environment. They've got some nice touches that make things fairly simple, and if you're someone who has that one particular piece of Windows software that you would like to run, or maybe that Windows game that you'd like to run, this is already set up for you so that you can go through Play on Linux and set up some of your games and things like that that are Windows games. I'm not saying you're going to be 100% successful, but this sure gets you a long way and saves you some time as far as setting up Wine and Play on Linux to allow you to try out the various games and apps from Windows. So a long way to say all that. But overall, nice to see Zorin continuing to be active with their development. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos coming up. As always, thanks for watching, and we will check you later.